Yeah, of course, but I would like to start with the E words that were quite often mentioned in previous panels. This the European integration and energy, and how the reforms and helps to improve investment attractiveness of Ukraine, so that that the first day of war in energy was the first day of our autonomous work of electricity detached from Russian and Belarusian system. And by the mid-March of 2022, so then when we were close to remove Russian forces from Kiev suburbs, we actually legally attached our electricity system to the EU one. That helped us to live through the winter, but at the same time, what is important, that last year, electricity was one of the top export products for Ukraine to the EU, because in summertime we export a lot, up to 40-50 million US dollars cost electricity from monthly from Ukraine to the EU. And now, last week, we resumed the export of electricity to the EU from Ukraine, and it means that Ukraine is now currently an attractive place for place in generation of electricity, electricity generation in Ukraine. And we, as well, months ago, in Mykolaiv, in the very close to front line, so one of Ukrainian companies started the operation of wind power generation capacities that will export the electricity to the European Union. So this is the exact example how during the war we are integrating into the EU markets and how it increased the investment and activeness of Ukraine. But it is based on the years of very boring and long and almost invisible process of reforms, both technical and legal, and also transparency and liberalization of markets, establishment independent regulator commission, etc., etc. And it was in this discussion like this was like very slow movement, like we are losing time. But these are the processes that requires times. So that the same situation is, for example, with judicial reform. So with judicial reform, we have a lot of complaints. But if recently, in the last month, this year, we already have at least a dozen of criminal convictions of corrupted judges. So that it also took several years to investigate the small corrupted, big corrupted cases in judicial community. But now we have the final criminal convictions of those corrupted judges. At the same time, we have about half of judicial positions in Ukraine are vacant now. And what happened during last 7 years, the big debate about pro-judicial reform community and the conservative, let's say, judicial community vested interest, they fight on the mechanism of selection of judges. And now what is very pleased for me, because one of my closest friends, Roman Maselko, which is the most radical fighter against judicial corruption, is a part of this council that will be responsible for selection of judges. So it means that we are slowly winning in this battle in judicial corruption, which is extremely conservative. It takes years and years for every state, so including the United States, to modernize the judicial system, and we are advancing in this. And of course, that I'm not a professional anti-corruption specialist, so that requires a lot of knowledge of different processes. I'm rather responsible for boring trade agreements. But what is interesting that I came here from Toronto, where we announced the completion of negotiations on modernized Canadian-Ukrainian FTA agreement, and it is like copy-paste of USMCA agreement, which is based on very profound trust to the domestic regulation, because it's related to services, to good regulatory practices, etc. And for me, this is a good signal that Canada actually checked, verified the quality of our domestic regulations, and in reality, it's not so bad as perceived. Yeah? So that it is really good for good business environment, and it means that we have really good opportunities based on the results of previous reforms. We are not slowing the pace of these reforms. It's otherwise we are like speeding up with a lot of processes, and it provides like fruits into the new economic opportunities for all of you. Thank you.